And I will take a little anecdotal thing in this, my own education. I had the opportunity to work with many foreign nationals as my classmates in Allahabad University. Then I became NCC officer, a scout and guide. During my career, I was able to travel to more than 25 countries. So I have seen this the whole thing from a very, very different perspective. And of course, right from the beginning, in our culture, we were told Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We did not understand the full meaning of it. But as we grew and we became a little more curious as to what this phrase actually means, and then we found that this phrase is only one fourth of the actual thing from where this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam comes. And what is that is that I am Nijo Paro Veti, to think that this is mine and this is yours, is a very, very small calculation in our narrative. So what should actually happen is Udar Charita Nam, those who are large hearted, they consider Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that the whole world is one family. So this is our ancient wisdom. So coming from this background and then becoming a teacher and a principal, and again, in the policy making and all that. So certain dilemmas were also being faced, as to the young generation, what kind of value system should be taught to them. And then values, the discussion on values became a bigger discussion than how to teach them or how to make them catch it or something like that. And then suddenly we found that in 2015 and 16, a universal value system was brought out by the United Nations. And that put all controversies to rest once for all, that no value is bigger than taking care of each other. No value is bigger than ensuring that not a single soul on this earth is hungry or poor or lacks clean water or lacks clean energy or lacks decent employment opportunity or suffers inequalities in any form, economic, gender, or whatever. And why to have a society which is not at peace with itself? So no value system could be bigger than that. And that was the motivation. And that is where this whole journey began. And of course, the goal number 4, quality education and lifelong learning, ensuring for everybody. And 4.7 within that, the global citizenship, that became a kind of a passion. And that is how the whole journey began. I will tell you the overall initiatives. So first of all, let me put a caveat that the phrase global citizenship education per se is a rather new phrase. But right from the beginning, we have been talking about some of the elements of global citizenship education. So what are those elements? The elements are, let us say, environmental education, peace education, conflict resolution, things like that have been taught and talked about. And India's role in the United Nations, the India contributes largest to the peacekeeping operations across the world. And Indian peacekeeping forces are just loved in any conflict zone, right? Some of the two warring factions somewhere in the world, I'm not naming, they ask for peacekeepers from India and from nowhere else. So you see the kind of reputation that we have built over the years. So global citizenship education in the form of these components that I'm telling. And there are 3 or 4 mechanisms in which it happens. One is, of course, Ministry of Education, NCERT, the state SCERTs, there are many other, for example, Niti Aayog. The Niti Aayog has now become the torch bearer of entire activity under SDG. So these are the governmental organizations. Then there are some non-governmental organizations. So say, for example, there is one Awehi Foundation, Worky Group Foundation, Global Citizenship Foundation, with whom I'm associated with, as you know. These are some of the non-governmental organizations. And then there are certain multilateral organizations. So let us say, for example, UNESCO. And UNESCO's affiliate here in India, UNESCO MGIEP, the UNODC. So these are some of the organizations which are working parallel to the governmental effort They are coming to the schools and colleges. Now there are certain institutes of education in India. Let us say, for example, Bhopal, which works under the NCERT, and they have a full-fledged program on GCED, which is led by a very senior professor there, Professor Sangeeta Petia, who has taken it as a crusade. And we were involved in training teachers from across the country. So these are the efforts which are being made. But I will tell you the latest effort, which is very, very important for me to mention here, is national education policy. So national education policy has mentioned at 3 or 4 places that how this policy will cater to addressing the needs of SDGs, and also to make global citizenship as a central agenda of our whole education system. And for that, in the teacher training program, the curriculum is including a part of this with some credit points, then in-service teacher training program, and also making it an integral part of our own curriculum from K to 12. So these are the efforts which we are doing. And I have no hesitation in saying that India is in the forefront of advocating, of attaining, and giving a leadership in SDGs, including global citizenship education. Absolutely. So I think I will give you a very workable model for that, which we have tried out. Many schools have tried it out. It has had good outcome for the students, for the school community, for the parents. And we call it a whole school global citizenship implementation plan. Because, what we have learned over the years is that any piecemeal program does not work. Whether you do it in a pocket of the school, or we do it in a particular curriculum, it does not work. And therefore, my first advice for anybody who wants to implement not only GCED, but any other program, it has to be a whole school program. And therefore, it has to be across the classes. It has to be across the disciplines. And therefore, one model for that is that institution which wants to implement should first chalk out what is your vision, what is your agenda, what is the purpose, what is the objective. Then you create one strategic implementation group or a strategic initiative group, which will be the part of your core leadership. Train them, sensitize them, and then bring in the teachers on board first, because those who are going to drive the program, they must also be sensitized, because you cannot preach something which you are not practicing or which you are not aware of. So strategic initiative group, then teachers onboarding, and then identify the areas through which you want to drive this. So let us say, for example, road to sustainability, carbon neutrality, no justice, no peace, conflict resolution, self-awareness. In global citizenship, basically, is a set of competencies which the children have to develop. And one competency in that is self-awareness, social awareness, being sensitive to the needs of others, developing empathy and compassion. These are the areas. And these should become the part and parcel of all the instruments that you are deploying. So once that happens, then of course the strategic initiative group has its agenda, they have the meeting, they minute it, then it is implemented. And then of course, all these efforts need to be assessed. So how do you assess it? As you asked about the implementation and impact. Now, the assessment for that, you have to create a rubric. You can't give a paper and pencil test for that. That does not work. So it has to be a case study based, it has to be anecdotal, and it has to be a rubric based. So say, for example, you ask the children that you are going to board the bus at the time of dispersal, and suddenly you forgot that you have left your water bottle in the classroom, and then you go back there. And to your horror, you find that the 2 or 3 children are fighting, or maybe your child is being bullied, and then you intervene. And then suddenly they say, no, 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 don't worry. We are just having a prank. We are socializing. This is how we do it. There is nothing serious about it. But within you know the seriousness of the matter. Now, under these situations, what do you do? And therefore, the purport of entire GCED is that how it is impacting you cognitively, how it is impacting you emotionally, and how it is impacting you in your behavior. So that is where the actual impact comes in. So this is one model of doing it, but the best way is that involve the children in it. believe in their agency, give them responsibility, value their voice and choice. You'll be very happy to know that the many schools, progressive schools, in their student council, we in our student council, we made SDG ambassadors some 5, 6 years ago. But I'm even more happy with those schools who have in their executive of students, voice executive, well-being executive, so those children who take responsibility as to what exactly should happen, how we can bring the models of a just democratic way of functioning, how we can bring a model of inclusion, how we can embrace diversity, how we can ensure that those who are marginalized and those who come from humble backgrounds are not denied, are subjected to any kind of perpetual deprivation. So these are the kind of things which can be implemented as a model in the implementation. We conducted this impact, and we gave a survey, and in fact we studied it with a college going student and with school going students. Okay, and we found that the schools which have given exposure to global citizenship education in schools, in college, they had a better understanding of the world, a better perspective about the world, and a better understanding of the environment, the climate change, the justice, and things like that. But those college students who did not have a previous background, they were having difficulty in understanding what global citizenship education is. So this is one thing which is very clear. The second thing we found out of the survey is that students are very keen to develop these as a skill, but the parents feel that, is it worth it? Right? Is it, hindering in their planning for their own career? So that is one conflict they face in their own family only. And the third thing we found is that wherever teachers are enlightened about the whole thing and their own perspective is a role model for the children, their GCED implementation plan is much more effective than in the cases where teachers themselves are not very sure as to what should happen. So these were the 3 or 4 very important findings which I thought that I must share with you.